Good day. Welcome to Plain Talk. On this episode, we are going to be dealing with issues of the justice system, the criminal justice system, especially from the perspective of prisons and what takes place in our nation's prisons. I am joined by senior members of that organization as well as a national security advisor. So when we come back from this, we will get right into it. And we're back. Joining us today is Mr. Jared Wilson. He's the Commissioner of Prisons.
Yeah, morning. Afternoon.
Depends on the time they pick it up. It's on social media.
Stressful, Phillip. Yeah. So good afternoon to your viewers, and it's good to be here.
Also joining us is Saron Richards. He's the President of the Prison Officers Association, Your Excellency.
Yes, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers, and of course, it is also a pleasure to be here.
Our National Security Advisor, Richard Blaze.
Good afternoon, Phillip, and thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
And the Chair of our South Hub, Deputy Party Organizer, Michelle Davis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
So this is not the gentlest of conversations. We can come at it from all sides. But I think the first thing I want to do is give both of you gentlemen the opportunity to paint a picture of where we are, where we're starting from. Mr. Wilson, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, it's no secret that the prison service has been in the news, and I've been on the media quite often trying to justify a number of issues. And I'm happy to be here because I know that you'll have a lot of questions, Phillip. And I'm happy that we have a security advisor, so I guess he understands too the issues in the prison service. Just yesterday, I heard someone on the media, on a particular program, speaking about the fact that sometimes those who are not in the position might be able to say a number of things that they don't understand. And the person in the hot seat is the person who will have a lot of issues to deal with. And the prison service is quite unique in that it's like a tradesman. You're a jack of all trades, but you steer from being an electrician because you know you'll get shocked. So you'll be a carpenter, you'll be everything else, but people are afraid of current. The unique thing about the prison service is that the public is more or less unforgiving because despite what you do, as I keep saying, that the chain is as strong as its weakest link. So the leader can do anything to improve it, to change it, to be strategic. However, if something goes wrong, you have to face the wrath.
Lonely the head that wears the crown.
That's right.
Mr. Richards.
Well, the prison service, just consistent with what the Commissioner would have said, we have a unique responsibility. Challenges that we face are not easily understood by the public or all the other stakeholders. The reality is it is a challenging job. We have a number of issues that are plaguing this service that needs to be resolved in order for us to work within the context and within the framework of our mandate. So this program is an opportunity to highlight some of those issues and to see if there are possibilities in terms of resolve or resolution for those issues. But it is no secret would have been in the public domain ad nauseum for many years, articulating, very strangely for our country, articulating the same issues over and over, the same main issues we face up to today. And we believe that, going forward, unless these main issues are resolved, it will be very difficult for us to execute or to fulfill our mandate as expected by the public.
As President of the Prisons Officers Association, do you think that prisons officers are treated with the respect they deserve?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, the opposite is true. If you look at some of the issues that are plaguing us, the extent to which some of them really comes with them life-threatening circumstances. It is not a secret that a number of prison officers would have died over the years, who would have met their demise as a direct result of performing their legitimate duties. As a matter of fact, Trinidad and Tobago has the highest rate of prison officer killings anywhere in the world, and I'm not talking about per capita here. I'm talking about having the highest rate of prison officer killings. That's correct. Imagine a country like United States with over 50,000 correctional officers, with a prison population of over 1 million, has a lower rate of prison officer killings than Trinidad and Tobago, with just about 3,000 prison officers, and a prison population of just under 4,000. How do you look at that? How do you conceptualize that?
What I want to ask is, what would it take to prevent that?
Well, a number of different things. A number of different things. And you have to look at that from the position of a 360-degree angle. You have to look at that at all fronts. And there are a number of implementation that can treat with this debacle. Notwithstanding the fact that we live in a highly criminalized society, so you cannot actually eradicate it. But at best, you can minimize. You can minimize by implementing some of the things that are necessary to bring about some sort of ease in the environment. Chief among which is the judiciary, the treatment of the judiciary, and treating with the issues that the judiciary has at this point in time. Right now, there's a very slow pace of justice that is spilling over in terms of dissatisfaction, discontentment, and all these things in the prison environment. And it is causing loggerheads between officers and inmates. It is causing an untenable situation that cannot be treated. Because if an inmate is spending over 15 years in our system awaiting justice, what can a prison officer do to satisfy such an inmate? The discontent is too high. Prison officers do not have the wherewithal to bring about that level of satisfaction to alleviate that.
I had asked the Commissioner of Police, because I said to him, I said, the DPP, the Chief Justice, and the President all have the power to ease the pressure that's going on in the prisons right now. I turn this out about you, right? Because it's not overstating to say that from a position of arrest to charge to hold to prosecute, we have a gap that you're alluding to now, a significant gap. I spoke with a retired appeal court justice, and he said to me, the first thing that you have to do in this country is to adopt speedy justice statutes, or we're going nowhere. That we are actually engaging in a human rights violation behind the prison's walls. Would you say that as a fact?
Sure. And one of the issues I brought up recently is that you have someone coming in the system, particularly for murder, so that you have to make up your mind to spend at least 10 years. Okay? So when you have somebody coming in at the age of 20, 21, even 19, you are looking at most of your young adult years in the prison system in a place that is not configured. Because I keep saying this, the only purpose-built prison in Trinidad and Tobago is the maximum security prison. If you look at escapes, we had one attempted escape from maximum security prison and the person broke his leg. The other prisons, we have had escapes. It says something that we have outlived those institutions, those places that we made into a prison. Maximum security prison, we built it as a prison. The others, we made it into a prison. And what we have to do is to make the best of a bad situation by keeping persons in that system. And I'm saying, Phillip, in 2019, no longer are we getting the kind of inmate who will sit and accept anything. So they are going to find creative ways of getting out. We have to be a step ahead of them, and that is where the creativity comes in. I'm saying you will always find those avenues for persons to either have hunger strikes, to riot, or to try to get out of it.
Would you say that the prisons officers have adopted a position that until better could be done, let the worst continue?
Well, it's not that, it's that we are brought to a point that it is very difficult to operate in that system. We believe that prison officers, by and large, will always try their best. The mere fact that they are coming to work in that system is indicative of that. They leave their homes every day, come to work diligently to advance the interests of the state. but we are falling down in areas where we're supposed to implement measures to bring about some sort of ease in operation, and we are not doing it over the years for whatever reason. Prison officers, save and except for a few officers who may not want to conform to the dictates of the prison and so on. But prison officers are generally very caring individuals. There are instances where prison officers will complain that they have to take monies from their pocket to try to treat with some of the issues that we have. So that spells volume as to the type of caring that prison officers, by and large, will display in the workplace. But there are things, and one of the things that Mr. Wilson would have said, and I just want to expand on that. Once you do not have purpose-built structures, right, you will have problems. You will have problems with classification, right? You will have problems with amenities and facilities, proper facilities. Mr. Wilson would have spoken at length about remand, being able to have programs and so on, but the configuration, the space, the infrastructure may not be facilitating to that. So that is why over the years we would have been asking for a new, freshly designed, purpose-built remand facility in Trinidad and Tobago. Do you know we have none of that in Trinidad and Tobago? Do you know we have no purpose-built remand facility?
Let me jump in there with that before I bring Richard Blaze into the conversation, because I want to add this early.
Sure.
You're talking about purpose-built prisons. This morning I had to pin down two former government ministers. One was a minister of finance, and I asked them, and they tried to wiggle away from answering the question. I asked them over and over, how does it take this long to move from need to delivery? And I was speaking specifically about the plan to build the courthouses either inside or adjacent to the jails to provide real speedy justice on time, to terminate this wasteful contract transporting prisoners to and from between the jails and the courthouse, running people off the road. We've had multiples of accidents. It is not cost effective. It is wasting a lot of money that could be better spent on the actual system and making life easier for inmates and officers.
Well, obviously it's a wasteful contract for you, but it may be a very productive contract for others. So that depends on where you sit.
I said
right?
This flag.
Right?
This flag. I speak as a Trinidadian.
Well, and I hear you. All I'm saying is that, yes, when you look at what is happening in and around the remand and the development of that environment, it is easy to see, and especially when you look at other countries, they would have gone past these type of scenarios already, those first world countries. And what is best practice in this type of environment is that you have the courts really close to the prison.
Would it speed up
right?
justice?
Of course, you will have more
it would
opportunities
speed up the
there.
administration.
Well, you should have more opportunities there for better dispensation of justice.
We would go.
Right?
We could go 24.
But the reality is,
we could go night courts and around the clock.
We are preferring over the years to spend monies on areas that is not bringing any return on investment. Because when you look at some of these contracts, when you look in particular that contract, when those inmates go to court on a daily basis, they go to the magistrate court just to hear adjourned case, just to hear it is adjourned to other dates and so on. It begs the question, what is the return on investment? What is the benefit to the prison environment? What is the benefit to the criminal justice system? And you could easily come up with almost zero benefit. If you take that same money and invest in a court right in the vicinity of the prison, and you have more magistrates, more judges, whatever, and you have maybe night courts, you have maybe night courts.
Just looking at the money, $10 million would build you a functional court adjacent or inside a prison. $10 million is 10% of what we are spending annually to move.
Well, right now we heard, and I don't know how true it is, that to finish that court will cost some $2 million or so. But
how long has that court been under construction?
That court has been building for the past 6-7 years. And if you look at that
structure, what is the square footage of that structure?
Well, when you look at the structure, it may be smaller than your house. I don't know how big your house is.
Richard Blaze, as a security advisor, and I want to also say this to put him on the spot. Richard Blaze was a senior member of the organization.
Was? That's unfortunate to hear.
The organization that has that contract.
Oh, once upon a time, yes.
Once upon a time. Speak to that issue.
I have to concur with a lot, and I think a lot of empathy has to be afforded to both of you listening to. I agree with a lot of things that you said, from starting with persons want to talk, but until you get into the belly of the beast, you don't know what that you're dealing with. So it's easy to sit on social media and give all these recommendations.
Or in
Parliament. Yeah. And you don't know what is going on. I have the same view that pertains to national security. We all have the ideas and the policies and procedures, but when you actually get into it, you don't know what you're going to be confronted with, and that's when the managerial skill comes in. With this specific issue, with treating with stopping the transporting of prisoners and actually trying them in the prisons, of course, by all means, because it literally eliminates the risk.
Yeah.
And that is what is of primary concern to me, to eliminate the risk. As Phillip said, there have been several accidents and incidents. And every time a transport vehicle shuts down on the road,
Yes.
there's a tremendous amount of risk. And I've never seen over the years where we have had the ability to respond appropriately. But it takes us back to the same thing here. You can have these prisons in place here, but there's a downstream effect. If the justice system is failing you, then you can have 1,000 judges working 24 hours daily, 7 days weekly, 10 judges at a time. But when they come and they dispatch the inmates, what happens after that? Because as you were saying there's delay after delay after delay. So all you're doing, rather than transporting them, to have the delay after delay after delay, is have them right there.
Yeah.
So that needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
Okay? As you were saying, that you all are mandated to work in an environment that is not designed for that environment.
Two
And
government
everybody knows
ministers
that.
told me today, and you're going to see it. I was on an interview on the PSA TV, and they were adamant that it takes 5 years to plan and 5 years to execute. And then if they don't get the 10 years, another government will come and change and come with a new plan. Michelle, politics destroying this country.
Beyond politics destroying this country, one of the characteristics of these low crime countries such as Japan, Singapore, even the United States, you take New York, one of the prime characteristics is the expedition, the quick expedition.
Speedy justice.
Speedy justice. And you know what I'm sitting here listening to the comments and I'm just thinking to myself, why do we fail to modernize as a country? You know, why is everything so difficult when we have examples everywhere in front of us? We see working examples of what is working for other countries, and we fail to implement them. I mean, something as simple as building a modern facility, but yet we're building highways to nowhere. We're building hospitals that yet to
We
open,
won't be able to manage.
that we won't be able to manage. But the prison system is something we need to address due to the security issues we are facing in this country. This is a prime core, really concerned for this country with crime. We need to get these cases expedited very fastly. As you said, you have youths entering the system trapped. They're frustrated. Suppose they're innocent. Imagine you're innocent and you're in there and your case is taking 10 to 12 years to expedite. Aren't you going to be frustrated? And I'm not justifying any negative behavior.
No, but human beings are human beings.
Human beings are human beings. What you find in Japan and all these countries with low is quick expedition, education within the systems. But what every ministry fails to do is they don't have the proper support, administrative support. All of these ministries, I'm sure you're working with the Ministry of National Security, am I correct? Right. So you hear it over and over and again. Anytime we do a show, it's lack of support. You have to understand what you guys are going through in order to fix what you're going
But
through.
they're saying, and everybody who's spoken so far has said that people are speaking to issues that they're not qualified to speak to, even if it's from a position of knowledge. They're not even taking the time to understand what is actually, because the prison system is a culture by itself. And they're not taking the time to understand, because I realized over the years, and I have a couple of prison officers as friends, and I realized that as long as they could ignore you and leave you to handle it, then nobody else's problem. It's your problem.
You have to look at the what the prison service can deliver, or has the potential to deliver, or what it should have been delivering, and that is crime eradication, right? We deal with crime reduction, but crime reduction first and foremost, you hold the inmate, so that the inmate is no longer out there and likely to commit crimes and so on. And the next part of the journey is to rehabilitate.
Hold and treat. What is it treat?
Right. Treating it within a particular environment so that they could get effective rehabilitation. So that when that inmate go outside, the inmate could conform to social norms, acceptable
You
norms.
say
and so on.
rehabilitate. Do
But
we have
there-
systems to rehabilitate in our
and therein
prison?
lies the problem. And I remember the commissioner was talking about the opportunities that we are missing by not being able to treat with the remandees, because you have to appreciate now the remandees in terms of numbers, they far now exceed who we have at the convicted sections. right? And
70%.
That's correct. So 70% is a total that we have no real opportunities really to touch their lives and so on, to get them on the path of, rehabilitation and so on. So the reality is we are not maximizing.
We are turning.
Right? We are not maximizing
turning
the
people
true
into-
potential of the service, and the reason for that is we are, should I say, quote unquote, we are not spending money wisely in Trinidad and Tobago.
Correct.
I think
Because
it
if
goes
we
a
are
lot
spending
deeper than
money
that.
Are we
wisely,
turning people on charges into professional criminals?
We're
because
not.
of that?
well, the environment, once there's contamination in the environment, and that is owing to the fact of lack of adequate space,
Classification.
right? Classification, lack of adequate space, and also the inability for us to actually change people around based on the environment and so on. Of course, the end result of that will be contamination and people
Allow me
being
to ask
criminalized.
you a question. Do you have, in your opinion, the capability, in terms of expertise, persons with the expertise and the knowledge, that can put those systems into practice? Because you're talking the talk.
Rehabilitation is not to say it is not working in the prison environment, There's limited exposure to rehabilitation because we are not maximizing our space and we are not maximizing our efforts. Yes, the prison service could well go on if the system is managed properly, we are given proper infrastructure, proper resources and so on. Yes,
Okay,
we could go on.
before we get down into that, what you're asking, because I have to ask him that. But it seems to me that the thing that is the bugbear in the prison system is the lack of resources and time spent on remand.
That's good. That's the main issue.
Those are the main issues. What type of offenses make up the greater population of remand?
Right now, I think we're looking at murder. We have a lot of persons in there because remember, murder you can't get bail. So a lot of the persons who are stuck in there would be persons who charged for murder. And of course, with the new legislation, would be the
No
anti-gang.
bailable,
Right, the
yeah.
anti-gang.
What are
Mr.
they going
Blaze,
to do with that if you already overcrowded?
no, the point I was bringing, Mr. Blaze brought a point just now, and I wanted to add to that. If you give the police the resources, if they do the job that they're supposed to do, it means that we are going to get the clients in there.
Normal for the police is chaos for the prison.
That's right.
That's correct.
Right? So then what are we going to do? So that classification, for instance, do you understand what it is for us to separate these gangs when they come in without resources and without
Nightmare.
places to do
A
it?
nightmare.
Stab vest, he say getting stab vest and guns.
That's to protect us. But how do we
Protect them from each other.
protect them?
Each
Because
other.
I have a duty of care not only to officers, to inmates. So if I take somebody and I place them, for instance, if somebody comes in and he say, I'm from Rasta City, and I place him in an environment with Muslims, and they kill him, I have to answer,
You feel that you're responsible.
because the gangs are going to say the commissioner put him in place, local palace. So these are some of the situations. What do we do
Which
with
takes
them?
you back to infrastructure.
Exactly.
Infrastructure
That's
when you
correct.
have limited
And we would have been
space.
But then
For
again,
years.
the point is, who cares, Philip? Who cares?
Well,
Who really cares?
So let's put into the national conversation for those looking on, right? Because people might be wondering, so why haven't we all just thrown our hands in the air? A speedy justice statute, and y'all could weigh in on this, right? Would start from the moment the person is apprehended.
Yeah.
So you have 24 hours to charge or release. 24 hours,
Yeah.
police officers, right? If it's a situation that you require, this person is a danger to society, or you believe they're a danger to society, you don't have enough evidence to charge,
Yeah.
but you have evidence to put before a judge in chambers to extend, he could extend to 72 hours. And I'm coming at it from a human rights point of view here, because a lot of the issues you're dealing with is an absence of
Yes,
respect
human
for human
rights.
rights, basic human rights, right? So 24 hours charge or release, 72 hours extension that you could charge. Abuse of that could cause you to have to answer questions. You've come before me for extensions 10 times and all 10 fell apart. You're abusing the statute.
Yeah.
Once somebody is charged, you have 6 months. This is a speedy justice statute. You have a 6 months to prosecute or release. Again, 6 months. If you've charged somebody, 6 months is more than enough time to gather evidence to prosecute that person, won't you say?
Well, in a best case scenario,
If you have evidence to charge.
Some countries the turnover rate is even lower than that.
Lower.
There are countries where that time is really a month or
A
3
month,
months.
right.
So
Listen,
when they say 6 months,
6
my
months is
group-
just putting
Yeah,
the animal
yeah.
on a leash
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we
yeah.
we open-ended.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to you,
But we
if
would
you-
agree with that. We
if
would
you
agree with that
charge
in a best case
somebody
scenario.
Yeah.
with a criminal offense, you shouldn't require more than 6 months. That will have to come down to 3 when you have the system functional. But 6 months is more enough. 6 months to prosecute, so you wouldn't have situations where people are on remand for 15 years. When that 6 months, if before that 6 months is up, you've decided to prosecute, that is where the time spent now. And a speedy justice statute says 3 years
Yeah.
for civil matters, 5 years for criminal matters. 5 years is more than enough time to prosecute somebody for a criminal matter. Wouldn't you agree?
We have inmates staying in prison for 17 years.
I
18
understand that,
years.
and that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree that
No,
at
no,
the
we
start,
agree.
at
In
the
a best
start,
case scenario.
at the
Yeah.
st- just
In a
to
best
put,
case
just to put it
scenario,
on a
yes.
leash,
Yeah.
5 years, because it's time to put the justice system in, to put them to respond to this, and the chief justice, the chief magistrate, all of the judges, the law association, everybody now have to get into this conversation. It cannot just be y'all.
You see, and what we're doing here, in my opinion, is just barely scratching the surface. Because at the end of the day, your job is really to rehabilitate,
Yeah.
to hold accountable. You're accountable for the crime that you have committed. There are some persons that you really have to treat strictly on accountability to separate them from the general public. And then there's another sector that you have to do rehabilitation with.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're not discussing here, we're speaking about the justice system. And you have that area to look at too. I'll take you to a scenario that we had a few months ago, where someone, it was on social media, where a gentleman filmed someone discarding rubbish,
Right.
polluting the area. And he filmed it, took it to the police, and a police officer decided that she would follow it up.
Yes.
To cut a long story short, it went to court,
Yes.
and the gentleman was charged.
Okay.
Now, rather than subject him to the full penalty, which was $5,000, the judge, in his wisdom, his or her wisdom, thought that they would do it for $1,000. Why? Because it was his first offense. Really? It was the first time he was caught.
Okay.
But it's not his first. So that just tells you, on top of everything, so the whole thing is in so many layers.
Yeah, but where they really want the justice system to become more responsive is the burden that remand is placing on them. You know? Remand is their biggest problem right now.
At least
and,
that is
and it
the
goes
immediate
for,
problem.
you see,
Remand is what is on, but don't say it's on fire. But you know what I mean.
That's what the
Remand,
volatility is.
remand
Yeah.
is
But
remand
why
is
is
a-
it taking so long? Why is everything take so
we
long?
don't
in
have a
Trinidad?
speedy
Case
justice
management.
statute.
Is
It's
it-
case
is it-
as you
management.
just said, there's a lot of just bureaucracy and procrastination and
Correct.
just deliberate
And again,
deleys from lack of concern.
Exactly.
You think it's
Lack
lack of
of
concern?
concern.
People have said that there are lawyers
Really?
in the system that go to court just for the appearance fee and stand
Why do
down.
I think it's lack of concern?
The-
A $6.4
you see,
billion national
I
security
think,
budget. Look at it.
I think wherever there's motivation, enough motivation, there will be following that enough effort, right? And I think this is a motivational issue. I think people, they have different interests involved in this whole part, and I agree with you. There are persons who don't want the justice system fixed at all, in my view.
Agreed.
And because the justice
Of
system, a
course.
broken justice
Agreed.
system,
That's the
Crime
problem.
is
providing-
paying Trinidad and
That's
Tobago
correct.
That's when the problem.
$25,000 a month to house an inmate. You all get
That's
that money?
correct.
That's what they say it costing us, $25,000
That has
a
been the
month.
fundamental
Why
problem.
we not
Trinidad
getting
and
that
Tobago
money?
for
Who's getting
56
that
years.
money? Who's
So
getting
there's a lot of
$25,000 a month?
persons, there are a lot of persons or opportunities for persons in the background who are not in the forefront, who are actually benefiting from this, and I would describe it as a status quo. It's a status quo
Definitely,
situation because people are benefiting over time, and I don't think persons who are benefiting to any large extent will want this situation to change
Exactly.
or change anytime
Because
soon.
they no longer benefit. And
So
it
that-
goes
that
back-
is-
that is
it
the
goes
status quo
back
of
to
everything in this
everything in
country.
Trinidad.
Every single thing.
Everyone has to benefit. The
Broken by,
lawyers,
what'd you say? Broken by what?
deliberate incompetency we practice here. Because it is deliberate because the lawyers benefit, the judges benefit,
A lot of persons benefit.
everybody benefit, the security benefits, and everybody eats enough food. And that's our mentality here.
And
Let's
I-
be real. Our mentality is to deliberately slow everything because everybody wants a side pay. Instead of thinking of the country first.
I asked the question the other day. We have been having large budgets. National security has been having the second largest
second
budget
highest, yes, sir.
for over about 10 years.
Years.
Right? When you look at $6 billion on average, $6 billion is 6,000 million for the viewers who do not know what $6 billion is. I just want people to wrap their minds around this. 6 billion every year. Every year religiously, the government is motivated based on the fear exerted by the public to have these allocations to treat with their issues. When you look at how this money is divided up, when you look at wages and salaries, and I know you would have operated in the National Security Department, so you might have some idea the wages and salary, it will be between 2.5 to 3 billion.
Well, I was in the private sector.
Right. Wages and salaries
Based on-
anywhere between 2.5 to 3 billion. Right? So you have another 3 billion on
Unaccounted
average every year.
Unaccounted
How
for.
do we account for
Unaccounted.
those spending?
No,
and
transfers.
3 billion
Transfers.
is 3,000 million.
My lord,
Every
I
12
spoke
months.
to a minister of finance this morning. I said to him, you have to justify the trillions of dollars we've lost. He said, this country has never made trillions. I said, but we spend trillions. He said, what do you mean? I said, in the last 20 years, it's $1.2 trillion in budgets. That's what we spent.
And you have to look at that in that macro sense to get an appreciation
Everything is broken.
of how things are going.
When
Because
she says deliberate incompetency, what she means is you cannot sit here today and know that with this abundance of real firepower, because I want to tell you something, you all give me a lot of confidence, the way you all speak, and that you understand the system, and that you have a passion to get it to work. There are so many people in the country like yourselves. We have so many good people in Trinidad and Tobago, so many trained and capable people. We have enough money that we're spending that we can't account for. How is it that healthcare is a mess? Education is a mess.
Everything.
Justice system is a mess. Law enforcement is a mess. So we can't get nothing right despite all of that.
If I just add to that, and what really hurt us is in 2013, we visited Jamaica. Right? Some of our executives, we visited Jamaica to get an appreciation of how they operate within their systems, what are some of the implementations, so we can look at some of the gaps or maybe where we would have exceeded them and so on. And we were surprised at that time in 2013, when we were enjoying large surpluses in Trinidad and Tobago, and Jamaica at that time could have been described as being almost impoverished. And when you look at the implementations in their prison system, we ought to be very envious
And
and
ashamed.
ashamed. Jamaica has a parole system that is operating for years now.
Carolyn Sipasad Bechan tried to explain to me this morning in that interview that it took this nation 5 years to plan the bracelet, what you call that system?
Electronic
monitoring.
monitoring.
We still at the planning, we're not at the implementation.
And mind you, that law would have been passed some time ago.
So again, and Trinidad and Tobago needs to hear this because we have to take a short break, but Trinidad and Tobago needs to go to the break with this knowledge, that we have all that is required to make Trinidad and Tobago a functional first world nation, but for a lack of leadership at the top. When we come back.
SN Glassworks, number 3, Limefruit Road, Freeport. Suppliers and professional installers of aluminum windows and doors, shop fronts, bath enclosures, awnings, skylights, insect screens, curtain walls, and claddings. Specials on aluminum sliding windows, 4 feet by 4 feet, $900 installed, and 4 feet by 6 feet, $1,000 installed. Call us today at 292-4308 or 746-0153 for all your glass needs.
Sale, sale, sale. Boddington and Associates Optical is offering free eye testing along with 50% off all frames and 30% off all lenses. Boddington and Associates Optical, located at number 17 Carney Savannah Road, Chaguanas, and 11 McBean Road, Couva. Info line 671-5342. Call and book your free eye testing today. Boddington and Associates Optical, helping you see the way.
Antel is Trinidad's most reliable and technically experienced ICT company, providers of quality structured cabling, Cat6 data fiber and power cables. We also stock cabling infrastructure, basket-type cable trays for server rooms and data centers. Antel also installs and maintains video security systems, including cameras, alarms, and electronic entrance locks for businesses and residential properties. Call Antel 674-1406 or 783-9250.
And we're back, and this is a very informative conversation. Trinidadians need to understand how things are broken in this country. It's not enough now for us in this age of information to just throw our hands up in the air and say, well, that don't work and this don't work, and Trinidad is a broken country. Trinidad is a country broken by deliberate design. We use shock doctrine here to justify the most ridiculous of hemorrhaging on the national treasury. We create scenarios. While we were on the break, I was asking these two gentlemen here to give me the kind of numbers that they would take, and I'll bring them back into it. But I was mentioning something before. Her Excellency the President has the power to pardon everybody. They plead guilty and they pardon. The Chief Justice as well. The DPP could vacate all matters on remand yard, and the Commissioner of Police could drop charges. I spoke to the Commissioner of Police and he said he cannot do that because it will appear he's playing politics and embarrassing people on their jobs. So that leaves it now to the CJ and the justice system to take responsibility. The Director of Public Prosecutions, he is the Director of Public Prosecutions, so he has to be aware of the numbers and the population and the type of offenses. Let's put the murders aside for a minute. Vernon De Lima, a senior jurist, lawyer, attorney, he said to me that we in Trinidad and Tobago cannot, with our existing justice system, our existing courts, we cannot handle more than 15 murders a year. And we are already arresting and charging far in excess of that. We live in a country now where a murder charges might as well be a conviction.
Well, given the length of stay.
It's a non-bailable offense.
It's non-bailable.
They're adding other non-bailable offenses now. What do they expect that you are going to do with this increased population that they want to give you?
Philip, I want to paint a scenario to you because the public seem to be, what I should say, not sympathetic or empathetic at all to our plight. It's always about, give us service, give us. What are we getting? I'll tell you this. This is something I'm painting for you. I worked in the remand as a supervisor, ASP, and superintendent. So I lived there for most of my service. So I know these guys inside out. When you spend about 10 years there in the lower court for murder, then your matter goes to the assizes. No, it doesn't go to the assizes. You have to go to court to see if it will go to the assizes. So after 10 years, as a young person, you tell your friends you are leaving. So you give away your stuff, you pack up everything because you tell them, I have a chance. I'm going home after 10 years. And that person goes to court and they say a prima facie case has been made out against you. You know what happens when that person comes back in that day? You really feel you can speak to him? Because he's seen his family, he's seen his girlfriend. For 10 years, he hasn't seen his girlfriend. He's hoping that things will work out. So he goes to court and they say a prima facie case. You can imagine the temperament of that person. And then we have to come under those conditions and try to pacify him and try to, and there are no programs that would sit, anger management, all these things, to sit down and really counsel that person. So we have to deal with that, the average officer, right? If we don't have the requisite training to do it, we have some problems, right? And then I keep saying that you cannot put a cost to national security in any aspect. If you don't start spending money on the prison and trying to change the lives of those persons while we have them, you're going to get a person who's coming out probably the same or worse.
And that's the question I wanted to ask you as well, because Richard Blaze was touching on it. Now, Sarah Richards, you say that so much of your effort, energy, and money is going into just keeping a lid on remand. that you all don't even have the time to start to really have the conversations about turning the jails into universities and making
Well, see, we are
rehabilitating
stuck.
people,
We are
get
stuck.
them into literacy programs and get them into farming and second chances at life, so that when you
Anger
open that
management.
gate, you let people back into society that have a chance at a life.
That's correct. So the system is not developing at the rate that it should. As a matter of fact, we mentioned earlier that Jamaica has moved to corrections.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
What's the
Jamaica-
difference?
The difference is the approach, is an ideological approach, is a
Not
philosophical
discipline,
shift.
you're correcting
What's
Right?
the
behavior.
You move from a system of
With the objective of not
retribution to a
repeating
system of correction, where the emphasis, where the lion's share of the efforts will be placed on correcting wrong
Behavior.
behavior and reshaping and reintegrating persons who will
Where are we
live.
with that? Where are we with that?
Well, the thing about it is it's like building a house. If you don't build a proper foundation, how can you go up, then go forward to elevate?
So we
the
know where
walls
they
and so
were
on? You need the basics. You need the basics, and to acquire the basics, you have to spend money. And the commissioner just said there shouldn't be a cost to national
But we're
security.
spending the money, but we're spending it badly.
But Phillip, I want to jump in here. You all spoke about the budget, and Richie would have spoken about how much we get. That's not the issue, you know. The issue is how much is released.
Least, exactly.
And that is always, you see, we always have this, okay, prison got 3 billion. We got it. But when it's time to release, the budget department don't understand. This is why my feeling is that the person from budgets, not the minister, you know, because in all fairness to the minister, Phillip, and this is not politics here, he would sit and we would plan and we would strategize and he would want a lot of things. But the budget department may not release it. So I am saying...
Which budget department?
The government budget,
Central
their
bank.
budgets,
Central
yes.
bank.
So that why don't they come into the system, see what we operate with,
No,
and
but
then
what-
understand
but
what
I want to
happens.
talk about this release thing, because when you make a plan
Right.
and an allocation is identified and approved, doesn't that have timelines and purposes? It's not just a general number. We want to throw $3 billion.
Right, yeah.
Then we throw in $800 million at redevelopment, and we throw in $1.2 billion
Yeah.
at remand, whatever, right? Is it itemized and broken down with
That's
timelines
right. We
and
sit and we
metrics and
itemize. That's why we
measurables?
go before the budget. We go and we have that discussion. So we say we need so much for vehicles, so much we have
The
that
existing
discussion.
commissioner of police nearly shut the police service down because they was owing him
But
$356
hold on,
million.
let-
As a
let-
matter
Let me
of
ask
fact, as a
this:
matter of-
are you being owed now as you go along?
Of course,
So your operating budget that is approved, it is approved on paper, but you're not getting it.
As a matter of fact, the Minister of National Security, Mr. Stuart Young, in our view, how we look at him is that he's trying his best. Mr. Stuart Young is a very energetic, he communicates very well. We speak a lot on matters. He's very passionate about the job. But you see, passion is one thing, support is the other thing. And if he's not getting the support,
Support from who?
You see, wait,
He's
hold
the
on. That's the
minister.
point I'm trying to
You know,
get at.
that-
How is it?
Yeah.
How is it that
Yeah.
the minister
Yes.
of finance
Right.
can sit with you as an
Right.
entity and say, okay, you all walk out of that room agreeing that you
Right.
need A, B, C, D, and
Right.
E. The minister of finance has agreed to $3 billion.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And walk out and you're not getting the allocation.
Yeah, he can
Who's
easily
senior
tell
to the
you-
minister to say no?
He can
Who
easily
say
tell
no?
you, well, at this time I cannot give you. We can tell
Again,
you that.
So it comes back to fun and
again,
games.
we're budget. What type of budgeting are we doing in this
It
country?
comes back straight back
Where
to
is this
leadership.
money going?
There's no
Well,
mathematics in
that is
this.
the gigantic
Where
question.
is the money going? Because every ministry in this country is always not paid. Everybody's short. You have government workers that are not
I
paid
could
on
remember
time.
in
How
one
do you
year,
do a job without
I
money?
think the highest we would have budgeted for national security, correct me if I'm wrong, $7.2 billion.
I think we got $9 billion was allocated once.
$9 billion, but I could recall $7.2 billion. That was just about 4 years ago. I think was when the People's Partnership were in office. And when you look at that size of budget, and what you get in at the end of the fiscal year, I mean, there's a big disparity.
When you talk about $1 billion and
You're
$1 million,
speaking
people don't
about
understand the
there's a
difference
big
between $1
gap.
million and $1 billion. And again, the point in the conversation, because I know it is important to sandwiches that you understand this. $1 million, in terms of time, 1 million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is 35 years. And when you look at what we're talking about, there is a difference. When you say that you spend $6 billion on national
6,000
security,
million.
$6,000 million. That money could almost
In a
buy
12-month
another.
period. In a 12-month period.
We are looking at a
6,000 million.
country.
Every
we are looking
year
at a
for
country
the last
where you do
10,
not see.
10 or so years, we have been spending that money.
We are
And when-
looking at a country where you do not see the value for the citizens, taxpayers' money.
And when
What
you
we're
s-
looking at here is two issues: lack of accountability and poor leadership.
Correct.
Because
Where-
it comes straight back for
how does it
again, I
become-
put the question to you: how could you meet with the Minister of National Security?
I want to ask you a better question. How does it reach $25,000 a month to hold an inmate in that
I
system?
don't know.
Well,
Are you moving around in luxury vehicles inside remand?
somebody somewhere in that arrangement is having a lot of smiles.
Right.
Of course.
Easily we can see that.
Correct.
So, but, and I think
So, and if we get a proper government in this country, we're going to have to empty those jails, you know. Because a lot of these people that are smiling now, they need to come and get a little more familiar with you all. And I want to say that because in Trinidad and Tobago, what we are alluding to here, and I want you to hear me say it clear, we're spending massive budgets that go nowhere when it comes to the actual service that it was meant to. The current commissioner of police, he is a kind of no-holds-barred kind of guy. He'll stay you down and tell you straight up. He will go at you, right? So don't tell him he ain't doing his job. He coming at you for that. And I want to think that he kind of given other people in similar positions a bit of impetus to join the conversation. Mr. Wilson, you have a responsibility now to
Sure.
be as vocal as possible. You have an able colleague here who could take this show on the road. Trinidad and Tobago needs to understand, as Richard says, if all the other pieces in the puzzle fit in except the leadership, then we had to look at the leadership.
The fish never rot from the tail, as the old people say. The fish never rot from the tail. So what you're hearing here today comes back in like a cone, straight back to one thing: leadership. You come
And
up with
all-
all the ideas.
We thrive on mismanagement in Trinidad.
Social development
We just
in Trinidad and
thrive on
Tobago.
it.
Social development and management, because I said this morning and I say it again, that without the people you don't need a government. The purpose of government is the well-being of the people. It's simple and it's easy to understand. That is government job, to serve all the people in Trinidad and Tobago and to serve the needs of all the people in Trinidad and Tobago. Some people's needs are different to others. There are people who will run afoul of the rules and the laws that we set as a society to operate the country. You have to treat with those people as well. What you're saying and what I'm getting from the conversation is when those people are in your company, when you have responsibility for them, you would like to use the opportunity to try and transform them into contributing members of society.
that's our job.
We nowhere near there.
Well, based on the current situation, we can do much better. We can do much better. We are not maximizing our potential, the extent to which we are getting very low results.
Your life,
Undelivered promises.
That's
your
what-
life would get better with speedy justice and
Funds
proper
available.
budgeting.
Yeah.
Speedy justice, proper budgeting.
Well, if you look at the prison system, we really don't have any serious problems at the convicted sections. As a matter of fact, you don't hear about riots, hunger strikes, you don't hear about any sort of incidents in the convicted section. Where our problems are, over 99% of our problems is at the remand yards.
Even hits too. Hits
And
on
hits,
prison
all
officers.
of the hits
Come
come
from
every- from the remand yards.
Decriminalizing marijuana will have an impact.
In terms of numbers.
Of your
probably.
population.
In terms of numbers.
Would it reduce the population? You have a lot of people in there for
But I will tell you something. In Europe, if you study what is going on in Europe right now, they would have went through a period where they built a lot of prisons. But do you know what happened in building a lot of prisons? A lot of more persons commit crimes, and they reach back to square one, right? I don't know. It's a sort of social thing when you build more prisons. The thinking is save and except for those Scandinavian countries that would have done much better than the rest of the world, like Holland and Scotland. And
No,
all
but
these
it,
countries.
but the prison complex is a business. They have people, when you read stories, there are abuses, because if it comes down to monetizing human beings,
No, the thing about it is, if you allocating monies, there should be no environment where hemorrhaging is taking place as a norm. If you maximize the use of your spendings, right, the extent to which you would have experienced in Jamaica, Grenada, and these places, who are doing pretty well with their systems, right, but very little resources in terms of expenditure and so on. So it goes to show that the problem is not the expenditure, you know, it's maximizing it. It's maximizing it. And if you are not maximizing it, then you are not getting return on investment.
And what we're
if
hearing
you are not
is
getting return on
getting the budget,
investment,
but they
there's a
can't-
lot of
they're physically not
wastages.
receiving it.
There's a lot of
It's a
wastages.
superficial budget that's going on in this country.
Budget on paper.
When we see these figures and this and that.
I asked that
and
on
the
a Liberty
average
platform, you know.
citizen- the
In a Liberty
citizen-
platform, I asked that on a call.
Correct.
Somebody called me. They were very disturbed by what I
What
said.
you asked?
I asked where the national security monies are going.
Correct.
Because if we're spending it on average every year for the past 10 years or so, or as long as I can remember, $6 billion.
Okay, so let's come back to this.
And we are still in a situation where most of our prisons, we don't have any purpose-built remand
So as
facility.
long as there is overcrowding and problems in the prisons and you have all of those things to deal with, nobody's going to focus on the fact that the budgets that are allocated are not actually reaching where they're supposed to go.
Well, actually, the overcrowding, and we will now surmise and conclude that the overcrowding and what we're experiencing
Is as a
are
direct result.
beneficial to some people.
Shock doctrine. You create a problem and then you ride in like a white knight. to
That's
solve
correct.
it. All right. So
That's
let's,
correct.
So let's talk about this. So the justice system, because Michelle said earlier, we're building a lot of stuff. We're building $1 billion on a port in Togo that will never properly function. Or it is not at the head of the list of things that we need right now. You have $1 billion to spend. Build courts. Build courts outside the jails. Give you a purpose-built jail. Because we need to at least arrest the problem before we could reduce the problem. Yes? We get a grip on the problem. From the time we understand what our criminal justice system looks like in a functional environment, we could then start to treat with what is contributing to it from a socio.
Yeah. But I can tell you this, and I can tell you, I can make this as a general statement. Until unless prison could effectively and efficiently treat with crime prevention, crime in Trinidad and Tobago is going to stay. If you
Agreed.
study those Scandinavian countries, at
That-
the helm,
That's
at the
selling
helm-
empty prisons.
That's correct, because they are actually emptying prisons now because they are properly rehabilitating, they are implementing all the things that are necessary to reduce recidivism.
Justice delayed is
That's
justice
correct.
denied.
So until and unless you efficiently manage a prison service which serves as a filter, until and unless you do that, because police deal with crime suppression, police suppress crime, the very fact that a police officer is present will deter you from committing a crime, but it doesn't mean
Correct.
it doesn't mean it is going to change your criminally intended behavior.
A judge said that the
It will
But
just
would it not
deter-
deter
a judge just said that
that's
the
what it will
magistrates
do.
court dropped to 67% from in a 90 percentile. You're all seeing that in the prison and the remand system that,
Say that over, say that again.
that the performance of the magistrates court dropped to 67%. Are you seeing a slowdown? Are you seeing
Well, the reality is we have over 70% of persons in remand now. The remand numbers outstrip the convicted. Right? We have just about 30% of our population convicted, and I'll tell you this. That will speak volumes for rehabilitation and reintegration. Because rehabilitation and reintegration by and large is done at the convicted section. But if you're not getting the clients to go across to the convicted section, you are missing opportunities. They are tied up in remand. It comes like if you are a store and you have stock tied up in inventory and not reaching the stores.
Yes.
How you will get them sold if they're not reaching the stores?
Well, Phillip, if he says that, it means that the 30-something% just didn't come.
for the removing the political bubble that came out of it with the white collar crime and the Ish and the Steve and the nonsense, right? Removing that.
Yeah.
What Section 34 of the Indictable Offense Proceedings and Offences Act was written to do was treat with people who overstayed in remand or who has a case running for longer. I think it was 10 years. And if you're in the system for longer than
Plead
10 years,
guilty,
if it's not, it was supposed to be not blood crimes, not white collar crimes, and
Yes.
what you had to plead guilty to come out of the system.
Of course you have to.
It wouldn't
to get
vacate,
a
it wouldn't
lesson.
just vacate the matter. If you spent 10 years, whether or not you plead guilty or not,
Yeah.
you spent more time in the system than you could have spent if you were convicted
Right
anyway.
now, as we speak, a bulk of the remand population are trying to access the court just to plead guilty.
Guilty.
So what do you need for that to happen?
Right?
Lawyers?
The court.
Okay, I want to ask both of y'all this, as we hear. If we could raise the funds to get the lawyers, to get those people before a judge, if we, the Progressive Empowerment Party, could do that, you would facilitate them? Because we will work with you, you know. The system is
You see,
ridiculous,
the-
and I know you don't just want a patch, but it is unfair to those human beings.
And we agree, but the justice system has to work in unison.
But maybe we will show the justice system that this is how you're supposed to work. That you're supposed to create a priority for people. These are not, and I'm saying to Trinidad and Tobago, we have to stop treating with people as if arrest means conviction. It doesn't. You have to have your day in court.
That's right.
You have to have your day in court. People, I don't know what is the percentage. Somebody was supposed to join us, Wayne Sturge, he's a criminal attorney, and he gives me some numbers that's startling to me of the charges that end up dismissed. And between those two bookends, you all are left holding and managing a tinderbox. People who are in a system that cannot access bail, they cannot access court, they can't access lawyer. What is to keep that from?
Phillip, you ever saw a toy prison officer? I saw you play with a toy fireman, soldier, and police. You ever saw a toy prison officer? It says a lot. It says a lot in terms of how the society looks at us. And what I have tried to do when I took over the helm is to bring officers from that feeling of bending your head to raising your head up. The only way we can get respect is when we behave that way. So I've tried to change. This is why I'm here today, Phillip. Because every time the media calls, I'm there. You know why? Once information is ambiguous, we speculate. So don't speculate. Listen to what I have to say. So if any media house says anything differently, I pull them up. Because I'm not going to hide anything. And if I have to say the system, could I sit here and say the remand facility is a bed of roses? Is a hotel? No. The conditions are not good. And I'll say that. Right? But however, I will also say that the minister is trying to improve it. Because that is not a lie. But we go back to the commissioner of prison.
I need you to stick a pin.
Just now, Phil. The commissioner of prison should be the accounting officer.
That's what I was going to ask you.
That's what
I was going to ask you. Because
so
when you say it to me, because Richard asked, when you say Richard asked,
yes.
When a minister and a commissioner agrees and it's assigned and it goes to a minister of finance and it is budgeted, nothing's supposed to stop that from becoming a reality.
If the commissioner his post is made an accounting post, then the commissioner will be responsible for spending money.
So why is he not?
Right? Well, there is no legislative provision for that at this time.
So what is the accounting post for the prison system?
We have a summer accounting unit.
We have a summer accounting unit.
So we have to send to the ministry
but that unit is irrelevant because they only manage what they receive, and if they're not receiving anything,
that's right.
So it's out
and
of their
then
hands.
I would be able to determine what is my priority.
So the tiny hands.
Of course, because if I send for money for this, they may tell me you don't need this so much for this. You need this instead of this. And that is the problem.
But
I want to go back.
It's been discussed and approved prior. So again, we go back to the lack of transparency and all of this money and billions that is spent in this country. Where is the money going? You can't sit and discuss and plan a budget. You're not even
He has made it very clear. He has made it very clear what his opinion is.
I can say where the money is going. I can say it is going in a few places.
Right. So, but I want to go back to a very salient point that you just made there. And that is, if you have ever seen a toy prisons officer.
Yes.
And it lends to a lot of things. Because what we are discussing here in justice, that is the prison system is the final point. Because your job is to correct and send back into society, to develop the society. But there are several other aspects assigned to it. Social programs, education. And I've always found, and this is my personal view, in dealing with national security as a part of it, that we need to get back to the days when little girls and little boys, when you ask them, what do you want to do? They want to be a police officer. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a correctional officer, not a prisons officer, a correctional officer.
No, but you know,
get them back in thinking how
but that didn't happen accidentally.
Allow me here. How that you want to serve your country and have pride in that. You just said it too. You see people walking in the streets now, and it tells you how our education and social structures are failing this country, which is all contributing to it. When you leave here today, look at people walking in the street, and you all see them walking. That says a lot.
No, but Mr. Wilson is correct. I'll tell you one thing though. Because I spoke with Bill Bratter, and he came here when Gary was Minister of National Security, and I was communication advisor. And we spoke about the issue of communicating the impression the public have of the police service. What you just said there is so important to the prison service, and I don't think, and it needs to be repeated, that somebody needs to be treating with the image of what a prisons officer is in society, the role that you play, because there will be people who will run afoul of the law until we have our whole
But not only a
social
prisons
fabric.
officer, but what more importantly, what it is like to serve. And we lack that is null and void in our educational system.
I will tell you something. A few years ago, a particular minister, we were in the Justice Ministry at the time, and a particular minister told us directly that we would not spend so much money on prisons because prisons doesn't bring any political benefit for us, and you all do not shape political will or political outcomes. And I think the person was referring to elections. In other words, call how much you like, talk about the problems how much you like. You are not likely to shape any real political outcome. So in other words,
But why is everything politically
Yeah,
motivated?
and that's the point I'm trying to make.
Saran, that is
And that's the point I'm trying to
misbehavior in
make.
public office.
Right.
He is not, as a minister, it is not a political post.
Well,
He is government.
No, but it tells you something.
Yes.
It tells you how and where decision making is in this country. Decision
talking about
making
serve?
is not
Ministers
necessary.
not serving.
It comes right back
Decision
to that. Your
making doesn't
mindset.
necessarily redound to the benefit
Of
to
the country
whom
as a
such
whole,
decisions are made on behalf of. It is more facilitating for political interests. And I will say this, that is why in most societies, not even Trinidad and Tobago alone, that you will see more spending on police than background, because we operate basically in
But the
background.
Scandinavian countries that you speak
Yeah,
about, they speak with pride. That
Because they are working for their public
Public.
and to treat with public issues and to have good public outcomes to shape their country. That doesn't necessarily mean that decision making in the Western Hemisphere and zeroing on areas, Central American countries, Caribbean countries, right? Third world countries, a lot of the decision making are largely political, to derive political
I want to ask you a
benefit.
question. I want to ask you a question. The wealth of knowledge both of you have, but the wealth of knowledge you have has to be driven by something. How come you're not frustrated? And how come you're not just punching that clock? Why you still care so much to try and to know the things you
No, because I will
and
tell
to
you
know
this.
the numbers
No,
and the,
I will tell you this. You must have hope. And you must continue to have hope. Because if you do not have hope, you have nothing.
Well said.
Right? You have to continue trying. Right? It is not sufficient to say, well, everything has fallen down, let me give up. You must have hope in order to continue. And that is what we strive on. We hope for the day that things will change in a meaningful way, so that prison officers after our time will have a better experience.
Indeed.
So that the public after our time will have a better experience in terms of paying their taxpayers' dollars for these institutions to be managed and run.
Well
So we will continue having that hope.
Mr. Wilson, Commissioner, if you had, I want to say your way, what would you do immediately to fix the system? Let's assume that the justice system is functioning and you're getting speedy justice. What would you do immediately to improve the system, not only for corrections officers, but for prisoners?
One of the first things I would do is reconfigure the whole prison and make it purpose-built. Because, let me tell you something, I went to Florida, and in that remand system, there are cells, it's configured in a particular way. The cells are open. The inmates come outside, the cells are open during the day, they come outside, there's a basketball ring so they can play basketball, there's a television, there's a telephone, and there are vending machines, and they have a card. So they can go and take out a sandwich, eat something, chat, use the telephone, that type of thing. It brings down the tension a lot, and it doesn't keep them. In our system, we have 6 or 7 inmates in a cell with a pail
On a
for,
good day.
for average 23 hours.
On a good day.
How is that acceptable? I mean, hearing it from Trinidadians talking on rumor, I had to take it with a pinch of salt to hear it from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
How is it acceptable?
I was prison supervisor in remand recently. I checked cells with 11 persons
Yeah.
in a 6x8
Are you getting?
When Professor Ramesh Devswan visited the remand
And
prison,
came out crying.
he came out, and when he was asked to describe what he experienced,
He
he
said,
said inhumane is to put it mildly. That's
Yeah, he
what
was in
Professor
tears.
Ramesh
I remember
Devswan
that. I
is what he
quote that
said.
all the time. Nothing has been done since that.
Well, you see, internally we'll always try our best. The
I'm not
commission
talking
will
about
try
just
its best.
you.
But in
I'm
terms
talking
of
about the people responsible for
where
the
the resources,
conditions.
it's always about the resources and where the resources are going.
And the money.
Right, and what is the emphasis when you extending resources, right? The emphasis cannot be that you are paying an external agent, and I'm saying this over and over ad nauseum, that we are paying external agent. When you look from a decade to now, almost hundreds of millions of dollars to deliver services. That is not directly beneficial, or not beneficial at all in our humble view, unless somebody proves us otherwise, to the system. There's no real return on investment that we could quantify.
So what you're saying is you are not directly, or do you
Responsible.
responsible for dictating where the resources go?
Of
Is
course.
it?
Of-
It is?
We could in the pre-budget we will give they will
You
consult.
asked, you
I'm
request.
serious.
We request.
We have gotten to that stage. The budget has been approved.
Right.
So let us speak hypothetically here.
Okay, sure.
So you get your release.
Right.
$3 billion.
Yeah, not release. Allocation.
You get your allocation.
And we
forgive
now
me.
asking for it to be released.
Right? So you get the allocation.
Right.
$3 billion. Who is responsible to saying $1 billion is going to this part of infrastructure? 100,000 is going here.
Who spends the
Right.
money?
Who
Okay.
spends the? Who,
All right. That
who determines where the
okay.
money is spent?
That is done before, because when we go for budget, they will say,
By
okay,
whom?
you want by the budgets. We go to the
Who gives the budget? The referendum. Who gives the budget? The
The
guide.
Ministry Department.
the ministry.
Who
Well,
gives the ministry department the guide?
No, what he's saying is they come up with the requisition,
Exactly.
with the request.
no, we come up with it and then we go and we discuss it. They will say, okay, you want 2 million for this, we will give you 1. Right? And then you say, okay, we ask for vehicles, we want 2 million, we'll give you 1.5. So we will sit, and the budget.
Look,
Is the $100 million justice on time contract part of your budget?
No.
Well, we wish that
No,
$100
Phillip.
million would have been redirected to the prison system.
Could you
Because-
handle prison transport if you, even if they
No,
don't give you the
there may
cost?
not be need for prison transport if we work efficient
Video
as we
conferencing,
can. That is the
If we
best way
allow
to
it,
answer
if
that
you allow
question.
it.
If we are allowed to work as efficient as we
Could
can.
you
there may
do
not be-
without that contract now with that service provider? Could you handle that system and save?
No, but
that
you have to
money?
develop
And
that.
of
You have
course,
to develop the system to reach that point.
There was a time when the prison officers used to move the prisoners in a green truck.
Yeah.
What happened to those trucks? Where those trucks gone?
No, we do. We
No,
no
the
longer.
police- the
do
police
that.
used
Could you? But could you, if you had responsibility for?
No, well, you see, the point we are making is that when you look at external prisons, that is not the way they operate. In the 20th century, that is not the way you operate. It is not the best situation
Bring
to have,
the court
to have
in the
agents
jail.
That's what he said.
Bring the
across
court in the
all
jail.
over your
Bring the
country.
court in the jail.
That
Bring
is
the
not, you
court
see,
in the
the risk.
foreign,
the
Is that what
expenses-
you want? Bring the court in the jail.
But that is what they are doing now,
That's
but
what
it is
they're
not
doing now,
reaching. That
External
is the
prisons,
problem.
any external prisons privately run?
Yes, and right now in the United States and in the United Kingdom, there are moves to take those prisons back from private entities. Why? Because the interests of businessmen are not always aligned with the interests
state.
of the citizens or the state. Because businesses operate for profit, bottom line. And the things that you may have to do to ensure profit making in this type of industry.
Somebody has to suffer.
No, the thing about that, they need inmates. As a matter of fact, some in the United Kingdom, they wanted to sue some state
done, yeah.
for not having enough prisoners in the system
Right.
to facilitate the contract. You can imagine that?
Right now,
So the
it's-
reality is,
And that's what I said, and I do not agree with prisons for profit. You hear stories about people getting jailed for life for stealing a jacket. I'm reading that on social media now, and that there was just a judge who was jailed. He was convicting people and sentencing them unnecessarily because he was benefiting from the private prisons. They were paying him. For
you see,
context,
from
they
a
were paying him.
business
But-
perspective, for prison to be viable, there must be an influx of inmates.
But
From a
that is
source-
not, that is an oxymoron.
For-
It should be viable when you close down the prisons.
No,
We should
I will
aim.
tell you why that is not
We
viable
should
from a
aim for
business
no
perspective.
prison. Forget the
No.
businessman. I'm not talking about
Who
businessmen.
are the we are referring to?
The profit here
No,
must
no,
be
who are
a
the we?
qualitative profit
No, what
and to society.
What I'm asking, like society.
Society.
But
For
there's
society, the profit must be a qualitative profit where we have less and less prisoners
that's correct.
every year.
That's
our
correct.
goal, right?
But for other entities, they want a quantitative
That is not
profit.
part of this discussion.
Right.
And we and you are on the
No,
same page with that.
but the silly thing is we have to discuss it because it exists.
20
Correct.
years now,
It
we're
exists.
talking
It is
about
happening.
20 years now, we're talking about put the courts inside or adjacent to the jail. Is that critical?
It is critical, and to be fair, that is what is being done now as we speak. Plans are being drawn up to have it at a particular location. So it's happening.
Still being drawn up though?
Well,
That is taking too long.
Drawing up, how long
And
does it
I
take
will
to
tell you
draw?
the association's position on that. That there, in our view, there's a constructive effort to delay that
I
project
know that.
so that the status quo can be maintained.
I know
So
that.
that persons can continue to get paid large sums
And
of money.
until the public makes this an issue, because and I wanted to say this,
You tell me
last
how-
time there was a spate of murders, and I was hearing a then minister being almost bordering on disrespectful. I thought you were going to strike, and I wondered if he would go and run the prisons. Can prison officers strike? Or are you all on
we
essential
operate
service?
in an essential
Yeah,
services.
Yeah,
They
essential
know we
service.
prohibit that.
So they know
The
that
Industrial
no
Relations
matter
Act
what.
speaks specific
Okay.
to those things.
So what you need then is proper representation at the government level to make sure the issues that need to be addressed to facilitate the smooth operation of what you are responsible for takes place.
But it must be a government effort, not just a minister effort.
That's right.
Because I will tell you this.
that's right.
The Minister of National Security at this time earned the respect of the Prison Officers Association. I say that unreservedly. Why? Because he really tries. The thing about it is, cabinet is another entity. The minister is one, cabinet is another. And the priority for a specific
Richards, I want to
minister
tell you something, eh?
may not be the priorities for cabinet.
Trinidad getting distracted by terms, and I want to explain something to you. In our system, according to
But that is how we see it.
No,
based on
I
the-
want to give you this, right? Because sometimes things are not what they appear. And in our system, according to our constitution, we need two people to form a government. A prime minister
Attorney General.
and an attorney general. The prime minister in our system is the minister of everything. He's corporation soul and he's the minister of every single thing. The buck stops there. Every minister that he appoints and gives a title to, you could appoint the minister of silly walks. Any minister that he appoints and gives a title to is an assistant to the prime minister in the Ministry of National Security. An assistant to the prime minister in the Ministry of Agriculture. Actually, I just need to understand this. The cabinet is just a grouping of appointed ministers meeting with the prime minister.
And they make decisions.
The prime minister is responsible for the conditions of everything. If you say that certain ministries are failing, the prime minister is failing. And I say that without fear of contradiction. That the cabinet speaks because the prime minister wants it to speak. If the prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago wanted there to be courts inside the jails, it billed last week. That's the untrammeled authority that the prime minister of this republic has. So all those titles, cabinet and minister and all that, that's besides the point. Because when they sit down and they say that this needs to be addressed, if the prime minister say address it, address it. And I told two ministers that this morning. I said because the flip side of all of this dragging your foot and dragging and making excuses, when people want to build Napa and Sapa and Taruba and Couva, nothing gets in their way. When you want to build a $15 billion highway, nothing gets in your way. So if you want to do those kind of infrastructural development,
But it boils down to priority then.
well,
Yeah.
you see,
No.
and I'm saying,
No, not
it
priority.
boils down
A
to
will
where
to
the
really
bucks,
want to do the right thing.
political
A
will.
will to want to
It
do the
boils
right
down
thing.
to where the buck stops. What is important to the country, and your issues are important to the country, and I appreciate you all coming here today. And I need to give you closing comments. I'll start with you.
All right, I'd like to say thank you, Phillip, for the opportunity to be here and to share, some of the insights with the public. And I can only hope, well, next month I go on pre-retirement and I get a lot of stress off of me. I wish my successor all the best because from my experience, the public is unforgiving. You do 20 things positive and the one thing negative, you hear so much criticism about it. But I'm strong. I held on. I think I have other things that I would like to see put in place, and I'm very happy with my
But you see again, and I asked him just now, you are bordering on walking out of the system, and you still here fighting for it. Mr. Wilson, you have a big part to play in the development of this country, I want to tell you that.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Richards.
Well, all I can say is that the Prison Officers Association will remain eternally vigilant. We'll always say the things that are needed to be heard. We believe that much more can be done to develop our prison system. Certainly, we do not believe at this point in time all the efforts are aligned to that objective. We will continue to relentlessly in our plight to treat with the issues as we see it. Right? At this point in time, we still do not believe, we are not impressed about the level of efforts being placed on the penal system in Trinidad and Tobago, and we hope that this budget, because we didn't get the PSIP to see what are actually inside there, the final figures inside there, we will hope that that will paint a picture of emphasis on where emphasis should be, right? But we'll be eternally vigilant, and we will talk about the issues as they come. We'll continue.
Richard Blaze.
I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to sit here with both of you. It's very...
So me and Michelle is too old now.
to have had that opportunity, I'm reassured to have listened to both of you, to hear that you not only know what you're about, but according to you, and I want to rate it, you have hope, and I think that's an integral part. For me, at least, that is, and I'm wishing you the best in retirement, and to your successor.
Well, I'm not a successor.
I know that they're going to have to work with you, and I think that they have a good person, a strong person, someone with belief and conviction, and I think it starts with that. So, Phillip, I want to say thank you so much for having me, for having us. It was a pleasure, and I would love to have the opportunity to.
I think they're going to have a part to this. Michelle.
As an average citizen of this country, it was a privilege to sit here with you guys, because the prison officers play such a critical part in the safety of this country, and to me, as the average citizen, it is critical right now. It is critical, my safety, my well-being, and I think you are shaping the future of these men and these displaced young men and women in this country, and I think we need to place more emphasis on this matter. I think you deserve this attention, because national security, to me right now, is the #1 issue destroying this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There you have it. Another example of capable, functional, compassionate, patriotic people who have the ability and the capacity to transform Trinidad and Tobago from a failing nation to functional and first world. Can we get there? You who are looking at this now, you get to decide. You who have been looking at all of these shows and hearing all of these people come and speak to you and tell you that the problems are not terminal, the cancer has not metastasized, the patient can be saved. If we as one people, Trinidad and Tobago people, got our act together and took our politics seriously, we would get real governance in exchange. So I wish Mr. Wilson well on his pre-retirement. I know that this is just a preview. He's going to have other opportunities to serve, especially if I have anything to say about it. Sarah Richards, it was inspiring listening to you. I don't know how you're not jaded. I don't know how you're not fed up. That you still speak this way gives me hope. Richard Blaze and Michelle Davis, of course, well, I mean, they speak to the level that we want the conversation to go to nationally. So, until next time, this has been Plain Talk. Stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago.